Welcome to CoCo Conjure. Here we discuss all things hoodoo, folklore, magic, and spiritual journeys. My goal, as always, is to give inspiration so that you can start or grow your own spiritual or magical practice. If you haven't guessed already, my name is CoCo. For this episode, we're going to add to our foundational knowledge. I don't have a story or anything like that today. Instead, I'm going to speak a bit from my own practice. Today, we're going to talk about altar spaces. Probably not a surprise because you already read the title. So, get your pen, get some paper, get a glass of water, because I'm pretty sure at least one of you haven't had water yet today. And let's talk altar spaces as they pertain to hoodoo practitioners. There is precedent for altar spaces or sacred spaces in hoodoo. Hoodoo is found within spiritual churches, and in those churches you do find altar spaces, sacred spaces. In the Book of Mules and Men, as well as in her essay Hoodoo in America, Zora Neale Hurston describes some of these altar spaces, especially the altars of people that she studied under. One guy, if I remember correctly, even had like different crates or boxes that he worked out of. Depending on the work, it was colored a different thing. Zora said that his best altar was actually a piano box, which is pretty cool. So these places, though, as she described them, were secret and sacred. Most of the time, they were full rooms dedicated to that work or ritual. And they were places of power that only the initiated could enter and perform work in. Sometimes altars or shrines are places for spirits to sit in your home and act as a meeting ground, so you may commune with them or offer veneration. There are typically two types of altars to work from. In hoodoo specifically, I would say, although I guess this could apply to any North American folk magic tradition. So two spaces. The first are shrines dedicated to those spirits, and the second are working altars. These are tables or spaces dedicated to your work, like as you do work or jobs or tricks or whatever. Regardless of the use of the altar or shrine, here are some ideas to keep in mind. 1, it doesn't have to be extravagant. It's less about how much money you spent and more about the significance of each item. 2 hoodoo altars will probably never look the same, and they shouldn't look the same. 2, your shrine or altar must have a purpose. Before you set up an altar, you have to ask yourself, why do I need this? What is the significance of this in the work I'm doing? And 3rd, size only matters if you want it to matter. This is all about creating a sacred space to have successful work. My mom and my grandmother are not hoodoos, not by any means, but both of them have turned their nightstands or their dressers into sacred spaces. Their Bibles sit there, their holy oil sits there. My mom has a sage bundle. The bundles are pretty cool because some of them she grew, some of them she bought. Those bundles are sitting on her dresser. When these 2 women sit by their nightstand and they offer prayers and they commune with God as they understand him to be, their cup is filled at these places and they find peace there. I've seen them shape mountains out of scraps just sitting next to their nightstand. So trust me, if all you have is a nightstand or a dresser or a corner, that is all you need. All right. Ancestor altars. So the ancestor altar is the most common altar or technically shrine in modern hoodoo. Before I get into the setup of an ancestor altar, let me touch on who our ancestors are. So our ancestors are people who paved the way for us to succeed before they went to glory. So that can be great grandpops Arthur, who showed you how to fish. That could be Mama Johnson, who adopted you at birth. That could be Marie Laveau, the voodoo queen, or Zora Neale Hurston, who is a pioneer in documenting hoodoo practice. That could be Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X, whose fight for equality ended in untimely deaths. You feel me, right? Your ancestors are those who came before you and had either a direct impact on your life or a profound impact in the world in which we live. Without them, you wouldn't even be sitting here free and full and happy. And our ancestors don't have to be known to us. We didn't have to interact with them. They didn't have to be someone we saw with our own eyes. And even the nameless need to be remembered. Even the nameless added to our quality of life, made sure that we were able to succeed and live today. So we're also going to add them to the veneration. And I want to be very clear here. It is veneration and not worship. We are not deifying these ancestors. We are not putting them in a place of divinity. We are acknowledging and grateful for the fact that they were here before we were here and that they laid the groundwork upon which we stand upon. Veneration, not worship. That's one, hot button issue about ancestors. The second one, second hot button issue would be like upliftment. So you may hear from others this idea of calling on your most uplifted ancestors because some of your ancestors didn't live a great life and even in the afterlife, they're still cutting up and they just don't want the best for you. I'm not going to lie. I don't worry about any of that. How I practice personally, I guess, just doesn't follow mainstream hoodoo cosmology. You know what I'm talking about. Folks that will treat their ancestors like some sort of spiritual bodyguards on the other side, like ghosts, who will punch out some hoe who is talking shit about them online or spread the tea and talk to them directly about a situation as if the ancestors are still alive. I'm not going to go into my full cosmology, but here's how I understand it. These folks have passed on. They have joined the infinite collective memory and the shadowlands that sits at the end of time and space. It does not matter to me if they were uplifted. It does not matter to me if they are uplifted now and in afterlife, because they are sitting in glory, enjoying peace. Their time as human beings are done, and they have a peace that I will never know until I join them in glory myself. So I'm not calling on them to fight my battles. No, I'm acknowledging their role and hand in my life. I'm honoring the life they lived, no matter how white or black or gray. And I'm pulling out of and adding to a bank of blessings they accumulated while they were alive, an account that was passed to me as my inheritance. When I throw bones and seek answers from my ancestors, I am trying to engage with whatever part of me was part of them. Now, listen, I'm on the fringe here, and I get that. So the role your ancestors play in your hoodoo is based on your cosmology. And I'm not going to tell you that your cosmology is right or wrong because it's yours, and it's your spiritual practice, and that's how you wish to practice. Just because I'm not worried about the level of upliftment and healing my ancestors are going through in death doesn't mean you aren't worried about it. I'm just offering a different perspective here. So you call on your ancestors and you visualize your ancestors however you see fit based on your cosmology or the religion upon which you are layering your hoodoo, or whatever beliefs you may have. Okay, so the next hot button issue as it pertains to ancestors is as it pertains to race. So some people would tell you that you shouldn't have black and white ancestors on the same altar. Some people will tell you that you shouldn't venerate your white ancestors at all. That goes against my cosmology. Like I said, my ancestors are people who walked before me, and they paved the way for me to be able to live the life I live today. They are the ones who, upon which I stand upon. I stand upon their shoulders. So if that's a white guy, that's a white guy. And I've seen my family tree. Yeah, it's mostly a whole bunch of dark-skinned black folks, 100%. But I also got white. I also have Native American. My great-grandmother on my father's side was Native American. And I also have Asian in there somewhere. I don't even know how that happened, but I saw the photos. I saw the marriage certificates. I know. like I know my family tree. I know how I got here. So I will not deny those people who upon which I stand upon. I will not deny the fact that I have a bit of a mixed ancestry, as most Black Americans do, I should say. And I'm not going to separate them out. I'm not going to be worried about who's white and who's black. When I call upon my ancestors and I'm trying to embody, the spirit of one of my ancestors, if you're someone who believes that your ancestors are literally standing there next to you, just on the other side of the veil, whoever shows up is who shows up. Are you going to deny yourself blessing and healing or help just because that person doesn't look like you? That sounds crazy to me. But that might not sound crazy to you. So one of the things you might want to jot down, if you're still with me, because I know I just made some folks mad. If you're still with me, one of the things you might want to jot down is, does it matter to me what my ancestors look like? Does it matter to me if some of my ancestors don't look like me? Should I call upon folks that are only uplifted, that are only black? Or should I call upon the best person for the situation? Up to you. All right. Now that we've hit some of the hot button issues, now that you guys got a little bit of homework, some things to think about as you move forward into your ancestor veneration, let's talk about the altar. So this is a touchy subject for sure. I've seen all sorts of ancestor altar setups, ranging from a dedicated table where family photos sit to bookshelves that hold like a family archive, and their history is told by knickknacks and obituaries. An aunt of mine has an entire wall full of photos that she calls her memorial wall. Now, she ain't a hoodoo, but this is a pretty cool idea if you ask me, one that can be adopted. So, yeah, some people even blend their ancestor altar with their working altar. Those some people are me. I do that. I do that. I blend them. If you go on Instagram or YouTube or anywhere else, I'm pretty sure there are some folks out there willing to share what their ancestor altar looks like if you need a visual aid. You're not going to get that from me because that's my altar space is very sacred. And it's not something I share with people. It's not because, I think you can do something to me through my altar or anything like that, but because it's like walking outside, with just my underwear on. Like it's a vulnerable thing for me. And so I'm not willing to share that. If you want a standalone ancestor altar, I've got a stock template that you can work from. I would definitely say, again, I will reiterate this, I said it before, that this space should be unique to you. It should be unique to your practice. And it should be unique to how you wish to venerate your ancestors. Okay? So this is just a stock template that you can work from, that you can add to, and you can change however you like. First, you need to define the space with an altar cloth. You can get this on Amazon or Etsy or a placemat you picked up at Walmart. My first altar cloth for when I did have a standalone ancestor altar, my first altar cloth was a white pillowcase that I never used. And I repurposed it. I cut out the sides and I took my time to hand finish the part that I cut, and then boom, altar cloth. Maybe you have one of those lace doilies laying around somewhere. That's really good to use. If you go online and you just YouTube ancestor altar, you'll see that a number of folks say to use that white cloth. You'll notice that these folks usually follow another ADR, that's African derived religion. So the use of the color white might actually stem from their cosmology or their religious beliefs. I used that repurposed white pillowcase because in my practice, white represents peace and blessings. And I want that when I do work, that made sense to me. So you use whatever color makes sense to you, but usually it's recommended that it's white. Okay, so we set the table. Now, what goes on your ancestor altar? Representation is key. You can have pictures or belongings of the people you personally knew that have passed on to glory. If you don't have any of those things, you can always write their names down and place it on the altar. When I had my dedicated ancestor altar, I had, even now on my working altar, so those spaces are shared. I had a Bible that my great grandmother gave me, I want to say a year or two before she passed away. Inside of it is highlighted her favorite Bible verse. And then I stuck a piece of paper with the names of the people I didn't want to forget. These are people of my blood and people of my root. So, people of my blood that passed away, people who were like, the play cousin or the godparent. I have their names written down because they shaped me into who I am, I also have photos of those who passed. I rummaged through some boxes that my grandmother sent home with me. And I found some obituaries. I stuck those in the Bible as well. So that's what you want. You want a representation of the people who are of your blood or of your root. Okay? Next are the things that catch the attention of ancestral spirits, or in my case, allow me to engage with their spirit, right? So those can be noisemakers. I like to beat a drum or shake my maracas, and I'll sing some gospel music before I call on my ancestors when I do work. If you don't have any of that, a bell is useful. Lights are also good. Across the board, white candles or oil lamps are used on ancestor altars. Say you want to get modern, you can use flameless candles or fairy lights, something that can stay lit all the time. So it acts as a ghost light, if you will, and it allows for the spirits to continue to come to your altar space. Then you have your offerings. Offerings are also going to be left on your altar. So the big one is a glass of water, usually left in the center. It's modern tradition to look for bubbles in your water glass. The bubbles let you know that a spirit is resting at your altar. That's the old wives' tale there. If you find that useful, go ahead and aim for that. Around it, you can leave sweets, strong black coffee, alcohol, cakes, or a portion of your meal. Common modern practice, I should say, says that if any of these things go bad or stale quickly, then your ancestors didn't accept that offering and you have to try something else. For me, because I'm on the fringe, since my ancestors are in glory and sitting in peace, and not necessarily floating ghosts, spirits that are coming to an altar, I simply just dedicate my Sunday meal to them and eat my meal at the altar. That's one way of going about it. If you can't sit out food, cousins, I have a greedy ass cat. I'm sure you've heard her meow before in the background. I've caught her on my altar trying to sip some of the wine or whiskey that I leave out. She didn't get drunk. She didn't drink too much. She's fine. But she was mad as hell it wasn't water, let me tell you. And one time at the beginning of my practice, before I had really sorted out my cosmology, I left out some cake. And when I woke up the next morning, half the cake was gone. And my cat refused to touch her kibble. Grace is a mess. My cat's name is Grace Jones. She's a black cat. If you know, then you know. Oh God. What was I talking about? Okay, offerings. Yeah. Okay. So water, the water cup. I forgot to mention this part. Some people leave out one water glass for every ancestor. If you can do that and you want to do that, go for it. Again, that's seems like it's more derived from an ADR or an ATR, not necessarily, just straight hoodoo practice. We got to remember that hoodoo can be easily layered upon other religions as long as the religion allows for it. So there's going to be a mix there. But if you're like me and you're a non-theistic hoodoo, I know that sounds crazy. Like I don't follow a religion in particular, then one glass is fine. If you follow another and that dictates that you gotta leave a water bowl out for every ancestor, then I guess it's what you're doing. Other offerings, you can read holy texts if you like. You can burn incense. And then of course you can say your prayers of veneration. All of that counts as offering. Okay. Finally, you have to keep your altar alive, keep it active and awake. This is usually done by lighting the candle that's on the altar. You can usually, I guess you can use a flameless candle, but it's not the same. The candle, when you light it, has the flame. The flame is gobbling up the wax, or if you're using an oil lamp, it's gobbling up that oil. And so it's a literal energy. It's keeping things moving and alive on the altar. That's very valuable. I got to tell you, though, that's a huge cost investment. At the start of my practice, I was going to the dollar store every 7 days looking for their novenas. So I decided to engage with other earthbound spirits. I got plants. I had an aloe and a snake plant to keep life on the altar, to keep it awake, if you will. Mm-hmm. Another way to keep your altar alive. So if you don't want to use the candle, you don't want to use the plants. Another way to keep it alive is to make sure that you have a consistent practice of maintenance, of making sure that you go there often. So that way you're bringing yourself, your spiritual energy to that altar space. Okay, so let's recap because that was a lot. On your ancestor altar, you need an altar cloth to define the space, preferably white, but you can use whatever color makes sense to you. You need representation on your altar. That could be something that the one of your direct ancestors owned. That can be photos. That can be paper with, all of the names of your ancestors, things like that. You need something to catch their attention. That could be a drum or maracas or a bell. You can have gospel music playing softly. You can have fairy lights, white candles, or oil lamps. You need offerings. That would be that water. That's the big one everyone talks about. But remember, it can be other things: coffee, alcohol, cakes, your meal. If you cannot leave things on your altar, don't let that stop you from making one. You will just dedicate the offering to them, like dedicate the meal to them, or you can leave incense. That works as well. And then, of course, finally, you need to keep the altar alive. So that means that you're going there with some sort of frequency. You can just light the candle. Please make sure you are practicing fire safety, please. And you can also put like a plant there if you're worried about fire. Okay, so let's talk about scheduled maintenance next. Okay, maintenance. So yes, you're going to go to this altar before you do work, or if it's your way of maintaining the life there, you're going to go throughout the week. But you really should set aside one day of the week where you completely refresh this altar space, just so that way you can make sure that you're practicing good spiritual hygiene. I'm going to give you mine. I'm going to give you what I do. So again, if you didn't get the pencil and paper before, now's your chance. Please, if you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, cousin, you're driving. But if you're not driving, open up the notes app. Here's what you can do to have a regular refresh of your altar. You're going to do this once a week. Sundays are preferred. Sundays are considered a holy day. It's also considered both the end and the beginning of a week cycle. Okay, so this is the perfect time for turnover. If you're using candles, I want you again to please remember your fire safety. Make sure that it's in a fire safe container. Make sure that it's not lit if you aren't around. Step 1, you're going to clean the surface. You're going to take everything off and you're going to clean the surface, the cups, the plates, whatever you used with Florida water or some sort of blessed water of your choice. You're going to dispose of your offerings by burying them or composting them or throwing them away. Or you can use the water to water your plants, things like that. Whichever is best for your current living situation, that's what you're going to do. And then you're going to smoke yourself and the altar with sage or frankincense or dragon's blood resin. 2, you're going to dress and light the ancestor candle if you have an ancestor candle. You can find ancestor oil on the market. I'm a fan of just using holy oil or olive oil myself to dress one of those novena candles. That's the one that comes in the glass pillar. You're going to poke holes in the top of the candle and add a drop or two. Or if you have a taper candle or a glassless pillar candle, you're going to take the oil on your hands. You're going to wake up the spirit of the oil by rubbing your hands together or clapping. And then you're going to rub the oil on the candle from base to tip. For visuals, you can just YouTube how to dress a candle. I want to remind you that you do not need a lot of oil. Literally a drop or two. That's all you need. 3, you're going to reset the altar space. So you're going to place the fresh offerings of water and whatever else you desire on the altar. This is when you're going to light some incense. This is when you're going to light the candle. This is when you're going to add some fresh flowers. You're going to put everything back on the altar and arrange it how you like. 4th, for this refresh, you are going to make sure that you engage with your ancestors. So you can read a holy text or a book that may resonate with your ancestors. Most of my foreparents were Christian, so I tend to read Psalm 90 to them because it talks about the blessings of yourself and of your generations. If this doesn't call to you, you can always sing or play some music that's a part of your culture, okay? And then number 5, say a few words of veneration. Okay, I'm going to say this prayer. Don't worry about writing this down because later this week, I'm going to post it on YouTube as a short. Okay, so just feel free to come back directly and play it whenever you need it. I'm going to give myself a second to pause and I'm going to say the prayer. Okay. A prayer of veneration for the ancestors. To all my ancestors, both named and nameless, both of my root and of my blood, I call to you. Hear my words of veneration as I invoke your spirit. I understand that I stand on your shoulders to reach where I am today. That you paved the way so I may live in the blessings you've accumulated in your life. To show my gratitude for all you did in life, I continue to walk in your name and add to that bank of ancestral blessings until the day I join you in glory. I say it, and so it is. All right, 5 easy steps. Let's recap. First, you're going to cleanse your space and yourself. Then you're going to lay that altar cloth down, and you're going to dress and light your candle. Then you're going to give offering. Then you're going to engage with the ancestral spirits. You can do this by reading holy texts, by playing gospel music. You can do this by calling out their names if you know their names. And then last, you're going to close with a prayer of veneration. You got all that? Good. Okay, let's move on to working altars. Okay, working altars. A working altar is exactly what it sounds like. It's a place where the spirits and your work meet. Okay, think like the altar the priest or the bishop goes to during a church service. This is no different. So the working altar can be your kitchen table. It can be a bookshelf dedicated to your work. It can be a nightstand. It can be a room. You can always keep it up. You can only put it up when you need to. Whatever you need it to be, the working altar will accomplish, as long as you feel it's a place devoted to your personal growth, your personal power, and your blessed work. Outside of that, it's not like the ancestor altar where I can give you a template. In Hoodoo, your altar is your altar. It's how you want to work. It's how you set it up. Like I can't tell you. I can tell you things I found helpful. So one, my working altar is in my room because I share space with my oldest nephew. And this is really private for me. Like I said, it's like walking outside in my underwear. I don't want it in a big space. My altar is always set up for work because Hoodoo is weaved throughout my day-to-day life. So I always have my altar cloth. I always have a fixed ancestor candle on the altar. And I always have like certain things. So I'm always ready for work. So for example, I always have my incense holder. I always have my brass cauldron. Oh my gosh. I picked up this brass cauldron at a spirituality festival last summer, and I love it because I like to burn loose incense. I like to burn that more than using my incense holder for stick incense, you know? So that cauldron comes in clutch, let me tell you. What else? Oh, I always have a representation of myself on my altar. It's always sitting there, and I use it for when I do work on myself. That might be a weird CoCo thing, but that works for me. Oh, and I always have a plant on my altar. I have a money tree and I have a succulent. Again, I'm not religious in any way, so these plants act as symbols of my cosmology, and they help to keep my altar alive. Instead of a plant, maybe you have an ankh or a cross or something. I don't know. Yeah. So those are the basics of what's always on my altar. And then my altar scape will change as I'm doing work, you know. I missed one. And I always have my money bowl on my altar. The spirit of wealth is always sitting there. My ancestors are always sitting there, and the spirit of wealth is always sitting there. So yeah. Again, I can't tell you how to set up a working altar because it's your altar. It's your workspace. Only you know how to set that up. But just remember that it needs to be a place of power for you. And again, it doesn't have to be something crazy huge. It can just be your nightstand where you keep your Bible and, I don't know, a white candle and a glass of water. Like, that's enough, you know. Yeah. Working altars can also be dedicated to an idea and set up kind of like a shrine. For example, you can set up money altars or health altars. You can set up shrines for the orishas or the saints if you're a religious person. The list goes on. Yeah. That money bowl I talked about, I do work over that so often that I might want to move it to a separate space. Because at this point, I feel like I've cultivated the spirit of wealth and abundance so much in that thing that it just should probably sit on its own. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, finally, who can see your altar? There is some taboo around people looking at or touching your altar. Big sis, Big Sis covers hers when she has company over. I feel like that's a common practice in modern hoodoo. I don't do that because, again, my altar is located in my room, so I just shut my door. When I did have a standalone altar space for my ancestors, it wasn't obvious that it was a place of veneration. So, like I had aunts and so forth come in, and they just go, "Oh, look, that's that's mom, that's dad, that's nice," and then that's it. They didn't really think anything of it. So, that taboo of showing your altar space is really up to you and how comfortable you feel with others seeing your work. And that, of course, is dependent upon how you like to practice. I'm someone who likes to hide in plain sight. So the various other altars I have through my house look like decor. No one would think anything else of it if they saw it. Okay. My final advice when it comes to altar spaces is that your altar space should function out of necessity, not aesthetics. Don't feel like you have to run out to Hobby Lobby and build up this insane, max decor altar space, right? It's just not necessary. It's better to use what you have on hand. It's better to use your cunning and go outside and pick up what you need, like from the earth, right? Buddhists, for example, will set up an entire altar with a statue, a book, some incense, and some water bowls and call it done. So like minimalism also works. And I will forever preach this. In hoodoo, it's about efficiency. So whatever you have on hand will work. You can make it work. All right. That's my 101 on ancestor veneration, ancestor altars, and working altars. I'm sorry I couldn't give you more on working altars. Again, it's very dependent upon your practice, but I feel like I did the best I could there. Okay, so if you've made it this far into the podcast, please give this a like and subscribe or follow wherever you are. I would love to hear from you. So if you would like to leave a comment or a suggestion for another topic, a foundational question you might have, I would be happy to respond to it and hear from you. So at this point in the podcast, I normally read a couple questions from the internets, the webs, and just, try to answer them as best as I can. I don't know if you guys have noticed, because we're on like episode 8 or 9 at this point. Usually I pick the question, but I don't think of the answer until it's time to film, like until it's time to record. So, it's always off the cuff, my honest reaction, my honest answer. Okay. So let's get into that first question. First question comes from Reddit. It says, "Good day. I am a beginner looking for knowledge. The only problem is that I have several and multiple questions." Several and multiple. Okay. I want to get spiritually active and figure out who I am and what I'm meant to do. I'm not exactly sure if I feel called to hoodoo either. Nevertheless, I want to learn it. I feel as if I'm going to have a very hard time with it because my family has a very traumatic past. I don't really know a lot of my ancestors, but also I worry about working with them. Might cause some chaos because most of my family were abusers and bad people. I don't necessarily believe in bad people, so that's why I put it in quotations. Not saying that I want to, but can you practice and not do ancestral work? Where should I start as a beginner? Do I have to set up an altar for a specific ancestor, or can I make an altar for them in general? Where do you find a mentor, or where's the best place to get information from? And what if you don't have enough information on your ancestors? Woo, child. I can do this. I can totally do this. I skimmed the question before. I feel like I could do it. I can do this. Okay, let's take it one thing at a time. So, can you practice hoodoo and not do ancestral work? Um, no. No is the short answer. Long answer. Hoodoo is two things. One, it's the veneration of our ancestors, the veneration of the people who were brought to this country, United States, and were able to survive and thrive in a space, in a place, in an institution of slavery when they were not supposed to. And two, hoodoo is the cultural and spiritual practices of those people passed down from one generation to the next. So no, you can't you can't practice hoodoo um and and not venerate your ancestors. Okay? I would like to remind you that you don't know all of your ancestors. You don't know what all of them were about or what all of them enjoyed. You only know your direct family line. So you trying to tell me that every ancestor in your family since the beginning of time is an abuser or a bad person? I don't believe you. I don't believe you. So no. Also, again, your ancestors don't have to be your bloodline. Your ancestors are also people of your root. So those people who passed, who helped shape you into who you are, or had such a profound impact on the world and a profound impact that touched your life in a very special way, they are also your ancestors. So you can just venerate them if you don't feel comfortable venerating great grandma Beatrice, who, I don't know, burned dogs for a living. Where should I start as a beginner? So I would have commonly I tell people to start by talking to your living legends. Start by listening to the family lore, listening to the family stories, by uncovering the spiritual practices that don't quite line up with whatever religion they're in. Like broom sweeping, like types of foods they have to eat during the week, like how healing may have shown up, the holy oils and the psalms and things like that. How did those things show up? That's always a good place to start, because you get a feel for hoodoo in a practical way, in an efficient way, in a grassroots kind of way. But it sounds like this friend doesn't have a good relationship with their family. So if that's you, I think that a good place to start would be to research and look into your ancestors of note. Our ancestors of note are, communal ancestors, those ancestors by root, if you will. Zorno Hurston is a good place to start for that. She's got Mules and Men. She's got Hoodoo in America. Hoodoo in America in the Folklore Journal literally reads like a grimoire. She tells you who she studied under, and then she gives you like some works of note that they accomplished. So if you're looking to figure out like the magical side of hoodoo, that would be a good place to start. Yeah, good place to start there. Do I have to set up an altar for a specific ancestor, or can I make an altar to them in general? That's up to you, buddy. That's up to your cosmology. That's up to how you would like to start ancestor veneration. If you feel comfortable with, just great uncle Fox, then just start with great uncle Fox and then build from there. It's up to you, really. I personally made one to my ancestors in general, just because I feel as if they are, they're a part of the collective memory. They are a collective spirit in my life. All of them together come to me, and I can embody, different aspects of that spirit, like of that spiritual group. But that's how I see things. If you want to specifically only work with one person, then just work with one person. And if you're looking for a place to start, that's also your place to start. Just um, build the altar. Build the altar, sit in veneration, and that combined with knowledge gathering should lead you somewhere. Where do I find a mentor, or where's the best place to get information from? So, again, you want a living legend that you trust, a living legend that you can go to, an elder that has the keys, the secrets, and that is willing to share with you. Um, Outside of that, you would literally have to find someone in the space, and the only way to find someone in the space is to go where hoodoos go. And the problem with that is you don't always know who's a hoodoo and who ain't a hoodoo. Um, uh, Best place to gather information. I personally talk to my living legends. I I read. I'm a studier. And then I build my practice from there. Um, let's see. Uh, there are tons of hoodoo practitioners online who have like institutes, or take students, or have initiations that you can go through. I'm not going to recommend any of them because I have not vetted these people for sure to know. But if you feel comfortable with that, I guess that's a way to go. I know that there's a huge push to find a mentor, like a single mentor in hoodoo, but I am of the opinion that you will have multiple mentors in your lifetime, and you kind of just stumble upon them. Yeah, you kind of just stumble upon them, truly. But there are meetups. For example, there was a group. I try my best to get to their events, but when I went on their website in Baltimore, like it just like nothing's going on. They have nothing on their event page, but they specifically work with the Chesapeake Bay. They work with those ancestors of note from Maryland, or that had an impact on the state of Maryland. And oh my God, I tried so hard to get to one of their events, but like I said, their website just it's dead. It's gone. Like it's dead. No one's updating it. But you can always try to find festivals and meetup groups, things like that, and just talk to people. When you're trying to find a mentor, you want to talk to the person. You want to get to know people. You want to get a feel for who they are and what their practice is kind of like. And then don't demand a mentor. Don't go in looking for the mentor. That's why I said you just kind of stumble upon it. You don't demand it. You build a rapport, and then this person may or may not take you under their wing, basically. Until then, like I said, books by Zorno Hurston. You can look up Mojo Workin' by Katrina Hazard Donald. You can look up Black Magic by Professor Yvonne Chirot. If you want like a non-traditional kind of blend, not quite hoodoo, but has has a flavor of hoodoo, you can try Stick Stones, Roots and Bones. I think that's Stephanie Rose Bird who wrote that one. Yeah, there's there are a ton of books out there. Not all of them are good, but if you're looking for a place to start, it's a good place to start. Okay, and the last part of your question, what if you don't have enough information on your ancestors? Then you don't have enough information. You can look into your family history. There are um, family family tree websites you can try to trace. You can get an idea of them by their birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, census, things like that. Like you gotta you gotta gather the information. You have to search. You have to search it out. If it's a ancestor of note, you can read the biography or memoir or autobiography. Like you listen, I said this like the first episode. You cannot skip the step of study. You cannot skip the step of knowledge gathering. That's very important. So if you don't have enough information, you gotta go find the information. All right, cousin. You got a long road ahead of you. I know that you can do it though. Um, you said that you're not even really sure about it, so um, good luck. Good luck to you. I think that you'll find that hoodoo isn't what you think it is. That the ancestor veneration isn't what you think it is, and that you can be in this space as a beginner, not born and conjure. Like you can make yourself into a hoodoo if you are willing to seek out the information, if you are willing to read and listen to the living legends, and you're willing to be in the spaces, then you should gather enough to have a working practice. We're not trying to be, priests and priestesses. You're not trying to do work for others. You just want a working practice for yourself. That's all you need, really. So yeah, let's get to this second question. This question comes from a Facebook page. It says, "Greetings, everyone. I recently came across some information that your altar candles should be lit at all times. I've only been lighting candles when I give offering or sit down to commune with my ancestors or spirits. Is keeping them lit continuously mandatory?" The short answer is no. Fire safety is a big thing. You need to be fire safe. So you need to make sure the candles are in a fire safe container or on a fire safe surface. You want to make sure that you are in the room or, when they're lit. You want to make sure that you have your eye on it, make sure that no kids or pets get to it. So no, it's not mandatory that it stays lit continuously. There are ways around that. I like the fact that you are only lighting candles when giving offering or sitting down to commune with your ancestors or spirits makes sense to me. You are calling them in. That light is the fire. The spirit of the fire is calling them into you. And that sounds perfectly reasonable. If you would like to keep your altar alive all the time, then I would go for a plant. I would go for the fresh flowers. I would go for a sturdy succulent. I would go for an orchid. I would go for plants because they literally will breathe oxygen over your space. So no, you don't have to keep them lit all the time. Now I will say this: there are some religions, some other practices that require your candles to be lit all the time, and that's a part of that religion. But keeping them lit all the time is not. It's not mandatory in hoodoo. It's definitely. I'm not gonna lie. It's heavily suggested, but it's not mandatory, and there are ways around that. One of the things in my practice that you might find helpful in this situation is when I need to leave the space and let my work breathe. So like say I'm doing candle work over 3 days. I'm not going to have that candle lit all 3 days. I'm going to light it. I might be working in the room, so I'm doing my work, like my job, like my actual job that pays me. And then, at the end of my work day, I'm after I've taken a spiritual bath or something, after I set at my altar, I'll put the flame out. I put it out by snuffing it. So a snuffer on your working altar is a really good idea. You can do the lick and pinch method, but child, that never sat well with me. So I like to snuff the candle. It's my belief that when I do my work, if I want my work to rest in between sessions, I snuff the candle. If my work is complete and the candle's not done yet, then I blow it out. So snuffing says I'm going to come back. Blowing it out says that I'm done, basically. So you might find that helpful in your situation. All right. We've made it to the end. Thank you so much for staying with me this long. Remember, please leave a like, a comment, or subscribe. I would totally appreciate that. I did 2 episodes back to back. So I'm tired. My mind is tired. My eyes are tired. I'm gonna go rejuvenate with some peppermint tea and some fresh air. Let me tell you, go touch a tree or something. Regardless, I am tickled pink. At the time of this recording, I have 33 subscribers. Y'all, when I read that, I thought 33 subscribers on YouTube. Y'all, when I read that, you'd have thought I had 33,000. I was so hype. So thank you so much for just taking the time to be with me, to stay with me, invest in me. I appreciate that so much. And I'm going to keep these coming. I hope to give back to you in that way. Before I go, I got to say it. You know I'm going to do it. You deserve the world. Cousin, you deserve good things in your life. You deserve peace and prosperity and love. And if you call for your blessings, they will come to you. See you guys next time.